surfaced. In 2001, Barack Obama spoke with Chicago Public Radio and said this.
The Supreme Court never ventured into the issues of redistribution of wealth and sort of more basic issues of political and economic justice in the society. Maybe I'm showing my bias here as a legislator as well as a law professor, but I'm not optimistic about bringing about major redistributive change through the courts. The institution just isn't structured that way.
And thank God for that. Now, the Obama campaign is not happy about that tape. Spokesman Bill Burton saying, quote, "This is a fake news controversy drummed up by the all-too-common alliance of Fox News, a Drudge Report, and John McCain," unquote. Joining us from Washington with reaction, Fox News analyst Newt Gingrich, who has a brand new DVD out called We Have the Power, which he hosts with his wife, Callista. I'm not really sure why the Obama campaign is angry with this, because Barack Obama has made no secret of the fact that he is going to try to redistribute wealth. I asked him. He said, look, the waitress not making as much as you, O'Reilly, I'm going to take from you and give to the waitress. He hasn't made any secret of it, so why do you think they're upset?
I think they're upset because it is very clear he's talking about very large redistribution of wealth. He goes on to say a little later in that interview that you have to put together a political coalition, which he has with Acorn and others, dedicated to redistributing wealth. And I think it's the clearest example of how close he comes to almost a European socialist model of redistribution of anything we've heard, because it's not just a casual answer to Joe the plumber. It's a methodical statement that, in fact, he goes on to say that if he and two other people who agreed with him were on the Supreme Court, they'd probably change the court's decision. And he talks specifically about overruling the fundamental rules the Founding Fathers wrote into the Constitution. When you read the whole transcript, as I did this afternoon, and I went through it twice because I couldn't believe it the first time. Now, again, it was 2001. He was a state legislator. You can make all sorts of excuses, but it is a very radical left-wing fundamental change in America redistribution model that comes much closer to the University of Berkeley in California than it does to the presidency in terms of what most people expect politics to be like.
Okay, but here's my dilemma. Obama hasn't deceived anybody in this. I have not seen any deception at all in this. If you vote for Barack Obama a week from tomorrow, you're going to get a guy who is the most liberal senator in the country, who has said openly he believes in income redistribution, and who will try, I believe, to do that through a number of ways, taxation being the main one, on people and businesses. So why is Bill Burton shocked, and his spokesman? You're not surprised. I can tell just by your demeanor that you're not surprised about this. You know who he is.
But let me explain why this is so dangerous for them. Dave Winston, who's a Republican pollster, did a survey last week, which came out of the field Friday morning. And when asked whether you think government should focus on economic growth or redistribution of wealth, it is 84-9. That is, 84% of the American people want government to focus on economic growth, help small business, have tax cuts, not tax increases. 9% favor redistribution. When asked later in the same survey, if we give money to people who have not paid any taxes, is that a tax cut or is that welfare? By 63-29, the American people said giving away money to people who haven't paid any taxes is welfare. Now, I think the Obama campaign's smart enough to understand, even with the lead they've had up until now, if they go into the last 7 days of campaigning and McCain and Palin can focus intensely on, do you really want millions of Americans to go back on welfare under the Obama plan? Do you really want to have the country focus on economic growth or focus on redistribution? They are in very dangerous water in terms of losing this election, despite the fact that the Bush administration and the economic disaster have placed an enormous burden on McCain. Remember, McCain tonight is running 22 or 23 points ahead of President Bush's approval rating. That is an extraordinary achievement, and if he can add 4 or 5 points to that, you could have an upset the size of Harry Truman in the making next Tuesday.
It's possible, but not probable, because John McCain has not made the case that you just made. He certainly hasn't harnessed the anger of the American people in any way on his side. Has had 3 opportunities to do so in debates, hasn't done it. You know, I think the folks are voting, as I said in the talking points, on emotion. On emotion. I think 75% of us are voting. We're angry. Got to get rid of these guys. Get somebody new. We don't care really what he says. Give him a chance. If we don't like him, we'll throw him out. I think that's the mentality.
Look, I think that when President Bush went on television for something like 18 straight days after the Wall Street meltdown, every day, every time he showed up on TV, McCain lost ground. But I don't blame the American people for that. And so McCain has this unusual burden, and I agree with you. He hasn't been as aggressive. He hasn't been as clear as he should be. He has 7 days now to take this new radio tape, which is new to all of us, even if it was made in 2001, and to drive home the difference between redistribution and growth, and to drive home the difference between welfare and legitimate tax cuts for small business. If the McCain campaign is very disciplined for the next 7 days, I think you'll see the gap close. And the reason that matters is, if the gap closes, people like Norm Coleman are going to get reelected. The only hope an Al Franken has, as bad as he is that the Obama tide will carry him in and give him the last marginal vote he needs to win.
Gotcha.
So this last 7 days is a very important time in this particular election.
All right. We'll see what happens. It's very strange to me what's going on here, Mr. Speaker, but I appreciate your time very much. Coming next, a Florida anchorwoman and